That's it, it's working. Yes. Hello, everybody. I hope you are very well again, wherever you are. Where I am, it is really, really sunny today and just roasting, toasting hot. It's lovely. I hope that it's lovely wherever you are. I like the rain too, so I hope you're just happy wherever you are. Um, my name's Georgia Byng, and I'm reading Molly Moon's incredible book of hypnotism, and we've got to chapter 27. It's all getting quite exciting. And today, for you to look at, is a picture that is probably one of my favourite pictures of the pictures that I own. It's a picture of my daughter and painted by a friend of hers called Henry Hudson. You may remember he was the one that painted the picture of the toilet. Well, this is a painting that he did. Would you believe it? It's made out of plasticine. In fact, I'm going to show you because it's so incredible. Look. Can you see up close? It's made of plasticine. He paints with plasticine, and then he makes it go hard, and does these incredible pictures. And here is one that he did of Tiger. Anyway, I thought Tiger in this picture is a bit like Molly. Instead of having a dog and having Petula, she's got a toy tiger in her arms because she's called Tiger. Petula, of course, is Molly's pet and friend, and this chapter is all about what Molly and Rocky are going to do to save Petula because they both love her so much. So here we go, chapter 27. At 8:40, Molly and Rocky, dressed in jeans and anoraks, were outside Shoring's bank. It was a huge, austere fortress with walls steep and solid like the sides of a small cliff. On two balconies were window boxes full of holly and red berries. Hidden in the holly were cameras that filmed the bank's entrance. It didn't open until 9 o'clock. Molly and Rocky sat on a bench on the other side of the street, hidden from sight by a bush. Hiding Nockman's plans behind comics, they were testing themselves on the layout of the bank, trying to visualize where everything was and where all the people who worked there would be. Through the bushes, they watched New Yorkers hurrying to work. 200 meters away, they could see the bank security guards patrolling the bank's entrance, on the lookout for would-be robbers. Molly and Rocky threw pebbles into the gutter as the last few minutes ticked by. I just hope they're all easy to hypnotize, said Molly. And you can do it, can't you, Rocky? I mean, I'm not being rude, it's just you said that most of the time it works for you. I mean, how often doesn't it work? The thing is, if you do it wrong and they get alerted to the fact that they're trying to be hypnotized, then we're in big trouble. I hypnotized you, didn't I? Said Rocky. That's true, admitted Molly. But are you sure you can still do it when you're nervous? Yep, well, I think so. Are you feeling nervous now? Yep, same here. Molly wasn't entirely confident of Rocky, but she knew he would try his hardest, and she needed an accomplice, so she tried not to think about things that could go wrong, but it was difficult. Rocky, you won't do one of your wandering off tricks when we're inside, will you? Don't disappear on me just as we're supposed to be leaving or anything. Keep calm, Molly, he said. You're just getting the last-minute jitters. We can do this, as long as you remember everything that we worked out last night. Okay, said Molly, trying to relax. A clock on the side of the bank chimed 9, making them both jump, and then the heavy cast iron doors of the bank opened. Do you reckon all the people who work there are in now? She asked nervously. Rocky shrugged. I suppose so. He stuffed the bank plans into Molly's rucksack alongside the hypnotism book, which was all wrapped up for Knockman. The two friends bobbed off the wall and walked slowly to the bank. The closer they got, the bigger the bank got, and the more their stomachs churned. I've got butterflies, Rocky said. You're lucky, said Molly, wiping her hands on her jeans. I've got jellyfish. Gingerly, they stepped up the stone steps. As they walked through the immense entrance, Molly noticed the huge metal bolts that kept the doors locked at night, and two hairy, gorilla-like security guards who seemed to look straight at her. Inside the bank it was cool and quiet. Copper fans and green lamps hung down from the high ceiling, and the floor was polished black marble. Molly glanced up at the high barred windows and saw cameras like menacing black flies crouched on the walls. Dotted about were smart-looking leather-topped desks with weighing scales on them, where bank clerks sat. Here and there were tables where customers could lay out rubies and gems on white cloths for bankers to inspect through magnifying glasses. Along the back wall were glass-fronted booths, shielding more bank workers from the public, and strung out across the room were heavy red ropes held up by brass posts. A few customers were already queuing up. Telephones were ringing and being answered. The place was buzzing with activity. Oh dear, whispered Molly, losing her nerve. Look at the cameras. This is going to be tricky. Not if you stick to our plan, said Rocky encouragingly. You'll see, we'll be fine. And good luck, Molly. Molly swallowed hard and nodded. Likewise, she said. And Rocky went to sit on a chair by the wall. Molly walked towards the desk in the corner of the hall. She sat down opposite a young, freckle-faced clerk. Good morning, she said. I'd like to deposit some rubies. Certainly, madam, said the clerk, innocently looking up. The poor young man was an easy target. He fell into Molly's web like a blind caterpillar. Soon, Molly had nearly finished her instructions. From now on, you will do exactly as I say, or, as my friend says, until 10 o'clock this morning, and you will behave normally to other customers until then. Then at 10, you will come to the front of the bank and await instructions, either from me or from my friend. The clerk nodded. And when would you like me to bring these jewels in? He asked, behaving normally. That's very good, said Molly. Now, please take me to see the bank manager. The clerk led Molly through a security door. Acting as innocently as possible, she looked straight ahead, ignoring anyone who might be watching her, and followed the freckly man along a grand corridor until they came to a door with a golden plaque on it that read, Mrs. V. Briscoe, manager. The clerk knocked, and they entered. This startled the manager's secretary, who stopped her typing and looked very irritated by her unannounced visitors. But after a few seconds of Molly's glare, she too was captive, and she spoke to Mrs. Briscoe through an intercom. Sorry to bother you, Miss Briscoe. There's someone here to see you called. Molly's eyes darted desperately about the room for inspiration. Called, Miss Yucca, she said, seeing a spiky potted plant on the windowsill and wincing inside as she heard the stupid name coming out of her mouth. Miss Yucca, repeated the secretary. I think you ought to see her. Send her in, came the manager's sober reply. The bank manager was a small, thin woman of 50 or so with shaky hands and a weak face. She greeted Molly with an impatient frown, examining her through horn-rimmed spectacles, wondering what on earth a child could want with her. "I'm afraid we don't give tours of Shorings to school children, but you may pick up some Shorings bank literature from our inquiry desk for your school project. I'm sure that will be adequate for your needs. Goodbye." "No," said Molly. "I would like your personal assistance on my project, please." As a bank manager, Mrs. Briscoe had learnt to be very untrusting of people. So she was tricky to hypnotise. Molly found her surprisingly resistant. She was like a dog pulling on a lead, refusing to come. But Mrs. Briscoe's coming was inevitable, since she was on Molly's lead. She twitched and she twisted and tried to defend herself, but she couldn't resist. Molly's tugging eyes got her. In half a minute, Molly had her well and truly disorientated. Soon Mrs. Briscoe had agreed to do everything Molly asked. With no time to lose, she had all the bank workers come one by one into her office, where Molly worked her magic on them. She gave each one the same instructions to keep working as normal until 10 o'clock, and then to assemble in the lobby of the bank and wait for more orders. Molly wanted to keep the bank working normally for as long as possible. It was already 9:30. Meanwhile, Rocky was at the front of the bank, keeping an eye on any new arrivals. He saw customers come and go, and he watched as the clerks behind the glass partition left their desks and came back again with a glazed look in their eyes. From the office, once Molly had covered all the security guards, including the 2 gorillas from the main door, and all the other workers in the bank, she concentrated on the cameras, which were spying from every corner. Some, she found out, were secretly hidden on the sides of waste paper bins. Already Rocky and Molly would have been recorded by 20 or more. It was very important to wipe this evidence clean away, and then work could begin. Mrs. Briscoe took her to the video suite, and every camera was switched off. "Now," said Molly, breathing a sigh of relief, "I want you to rewind the tapes and rub off all this film." "Impossible," said Miss Briscoe. "It goes electronically straight to our records office." "What?" exclaimed Molly incredulously. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Rocky and her on film at the records office? This was terrible. Molly would be recognised. Even the thickest of detectives would be suspicious, seeing her walking around the backs of the bank and the back rooms of the bank. Knockman's notes hadn't said anything about a records office. Molly was filled with fury and thrown into panic at the same time. "Wait here," she commanded. With her stomach lurching from nerves, she hurried out to Rocky. "Rocky," she growled, "we've got a problem. We're on film, and it can't be rubbed off because the film is automatically transmitted to the records office. We can't go ahead. We'll be caught straight away. Rocky, if we don't, what will we do? What will happen to Petula?" Rocky looked worried. "Take me to the video room," he said. "I'm not promising anything, but I may just be able to sort this out." After extracting the telephone number of the records office manager from Mrs. Briscoe, Rocky settled down with a telephone and tried to focus. He'd only hypnotised over the phone a few times before, so he was extremely anxious about whether he'd be able to do it now. It was very difficult to relax with Molly sighing and biting her lip beside him. Then he took a deep breath and he went for it. Concentrating as if his life depended on it, he dialed the number. A gormless-sounding operator answered the phone, and since the person was very unsuspecting, it was much easier than Rocky expected to hypnotise him long distance. So soon the operator had rubbed off all that morning's film. Feeling much more confident, Rocky then telephoned the bank's security company, and he had the guard there switch off the Shoring's bank alarm. Phew, Molly murmured. That was brilliant, Rocky. Lucky it worked, said Rocky, breathing more easily. For a moment I thought it wouldn't. It just shows, though, he pointed out, that Notman's plans are out of date. I hope there aren't any more nasty surprises waiting for us. Molly nodded, feeling sick. Then on they went. Both the front door security guards were summoned to Mrs. Briscoe's office. As they stood beside each other in their hypnotic states, with their tongues dangling from their mouths, Molly thought how Stone Age they looked. Which one do we choose as our driver? She asked Rocky. Which is the most intelligent-looking one? I wouldn't say that either has a brain bigger than a sugar lump, said Rocky, but I think the one on the left looks the cleverest. How can you tell? Well, because he's not trying to eat his collar. The security guard they chose was the most muscly and also the hairiest. Rocky took the hungry one back to the lobby of the bank, and Molly was led by the other guard to the bank garage. This was at the back of the building, down a narrow passage, at the end of which was a black fire door with a metal handle. Behind this door was a steel balcony and a flight of steps that led down to a concrete floor of a garage the size of a tennis court. There stood their truck, a grey truck the size of an elephant, a small elephant. Molly imagined that she would just be able to stand up in the back of it. Is that the only truck you have? She asked, worrying that it was too small to take Knockman's load. Yeah, grunted the guard. Do you think it will carry the contents of the bank's strong rooms? Yeah. What makes you so sure? Asked Molly, hoping that the guard's sugar lump brain was functioning. 'Cause the stones ain't heavy. They're real expensive, but they ain't that heavy. Okay, said Molly, looking at the truck's dark slit-sided windows and bulletproof doors. She hoped the man was right. Molly went back to the lobby and subtly hypnotised the 13 customers who were there. Soon they stood in a line like toy soldiers standing to attention, and as the clock struck 10, the doors of the bank were closed. A notice was put up outside. Closed for 4.5 hours due to staff training. We apologise for any inconvenience. Some very annoyed customers who'd wanted to come in were left on the steps complaining. Then hypnotised bank workers started to fill the lobby, and soon they too all stood in a line like dummies. This is like a dream, Rocky whispered. For a moment, he and Molly stood still. It was eerie to be standing there, with the working day on hold. In the background, a ringing phone made Molly jump, but it was quickly answered by a receptionist who, as instructed, said, I'm afraid he isn't available at the moment. We will call you back. Goodbye. Okay, said Rocky. Let's hit the basement. Mrs. Briscoe led them down a grey passage to a lift. There she tapped a 10-digit code into a small silver box. The doors opened with a swish, and Molly and Rocky followed her into the elevator. As it moved down its shaft, Molly started to feel very claustrophobic. She and Rocky were well and truly stuck in now. They'd hypnotised roughly 35 people who would be straight on the phone to the police if they came out of their trances, and these people were all upstairs, whilst Rocky and her were about to conduct their business below. If anyone were to wake up, she and Rocky would be trapped. Molly banned the thought from her mind and tried to concentrate on the matter in hand. Her knees were feeling all prickly and she kept shivering from nerves. And on top of this, her fear kept making her really want to go to the loo, even though she didn't really want to go at all. Rocky's brown face, she noticed, was looking distinctly pale. Molly was reminded of all the times he had helped her out of trouble at Hardwick House. She felt guilty now for getting him involved in this. "I'm sorry about this," she whispered as the lift doors opened. "Forget it," he said with a nervous smile. Now they were standing in the basement. Ahead of her, Molly recognised the entrances to the private counting rooms from Knockman's bank plans. As Mrs. Briscoe led them down the tight, low-ceilinged passage to the strong rooms where the jewel vaults were, Molly lagged behind. She'd wondered what one of these counting rooms would look like, and she also wanted to check that no guards were inside them, unhypnotized. So, peeling away from Rocky and Mrs. Briscoe, she went inside one. It was extremely lucky that she did. A stony-faced man, wearing a heavy, striped suit, looked up. He had a safety deposit box tray on the table in front of him, and he was pawing over a very large diamond.
"What the hell is a kid doing down here?"
he demanded, his eyes narrowing and his nose wrinkling into an aggressive scowl. Quickly, Molly zapped him, and she removed the diamond from his grip. The diamond was heavy and hard and enormous. It caught Molly's reflection as she rolled it around in her hand. "Jeepers, this must be worth a fortune," she marvelled.
"You betcha,"
the gangstery man growled.
"I stole it today."
"Where from?" Molly asked, shocked and fascinated by the underworld man.
"From another crook."
Molly shuddered, put the diamond in her anorak pocket, and caught up with Rocky, who was 3 doors away with Mrs. Briscoe by the strong rooms. Rocky looked as if he'd just been told that Petula had been made into mincemeat. "What's the matter?"
"The locks,"
whispered Rocky hoarsely.
"That idiot Knockman doesn't know a thing about this place. It's all been updated since he was here. There's absolutely no way we're ever going to get into these strong rooms and get those safety deposit boxes open."
"Why not?"
"Because Mrs. Briscoe here has told me that she can't open them on her own. Both she and the customer who rent them have to be present to open the boxes.
There are 5 strong rooms, each with 80 deposit boxes.
That's 400 boxes and 400 customers who need to be here."
"But why?" asked Molly.
Because, explained Mrs. Briscoe, "we have a new device which only opens the boxes once it has information from me and from an authorized customer."
"What kind of information?"
"Iris red information."
Molly's legs felt all wobbly suddenly. What was Mrs. Briscoe on about? "Show me the device," she said. Mrs. Briscoe led her to a black box on the wall. On it was a panel with buttons labelled from 0 to 9 and an electronic display board where numbers came up in green. At the moment, this display read 000. To the right of the zeros was a yellow light, the size of a billiard ball. "Explain how it works," said Molly.
"Firstly, I punch in the numbers of the safety deposit box that needs to be opened. Then the device matches my iris with my iris pattern in its memory. Next, it reads the customer's iris and matches that one with the one in its memory. If all the information on the irises is correct, the computer in the machine knows that I am present, and so is the customer. The device can then authorize the deposit box to open. It is so that the safety boxes can not be opened by anyone who wishes to steal their contents.
Molly's lip curled. This was completely unforeseen. She looked at Rocky, who was already looking as if he might be sick. And what exactly is an iris? A fingerprint of some kind?
In a way, it is like a fingerprint in that no two human irises are the same. That is why the device works.
Yes, I know why it works, said Molly, knowing that they were beaten. I just want to know, what is an iris? Mrs. Briscoe's answer was flat, as if she was reading from a boring textbook.
The iris is the colored part of the eye, the part which gives a person their eye color. The iris has muscles that contract and dilate. The black pupil in the center of the eye is the center of the eye. Everyone has a different looking iris. Yours is lovely. It is a beautiful shade of green.
A glimmer of hope shot through Molly. She nodded at Rocky. It's worth a go. A minute later, Rocky had punched the number 1 into the iris reading device to open safety deposit box number 1, and Mrs. Briscoe was bending over, peering into the machine, having her iris read. Then it was Molly's turn. She leaned forwards and glued her eye up to the yellow hole. She looked inside into the iris reading equipment, and the machine in turn looked into Molly's eye. There was Molly's eye, like a great speckled green tire, flecked with emerald rays. The machine began to read the branches of tiny veins and muscles, making a pattern in its computer memory. It made pipping noises as it assimilated the information. Then, all of a sudden, the eye in front of it changed. The machine began again, pipping away as it read the iris. When the eye changed again, once more, quicker than before, the machine started yet again. The eye shifted. The machine shifted. Then the pupil in the eye grew larger. The machine adapted to the growth. The pupil shrunk. The machine shrunk its data. The tire-like iris started to turn. The machine was confused. It hadn't been programmed to read turning eyes, and now the green flecks in the eye were flickering. The machine's temperature went up as it searched its silicon memory to find instructions on what to do. The eye began to pulse. The computer pipped faster. The eye began to twist and pulse at the same time. The computer started to panic. Its temperature was soaring. Its chip was bending. Its reading device was... All of a sudden, the computer couldn't remember what or where the reading device was at all. Suddenly, all it could compute was how perfect the eye in front of it looked. Its silicon chip felt as warm and as comfortable as the day that it had been made. The computer liked this eye, liked its iris. It was better than all the other irises it had ever read, put together. The computer relaxed and gave instructions to itself to open up completely. Ping, clunk, ping, clunk, ping, crunch, ping, crunch, ping, crunch. Pulyunk, 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 pulyunk. 400 safety deposit box doors opened at once, and simultaneously 5 steel-barred gates on the deposit rooms unlocked themselves. Molly took her eye away from the machine and admired her work. "That's what I call style," she said. That's what I call extremely lucky, said Rocky. He accompanied Mrs. Briscoe up the stairs, the alternative exit from the basement, and went back to the lobby of the bank. There he ordered the 35 hypnotised people to make a human chain from the safety deposit boxes all the way to the bank truck in the garage. Mrs. Briscoe provided Molly and Rocky with football-sized jute sacks and lots of big brown envelopes. Immediately the two of them set to work. The strong rooms were stuffed with a daunting amount of treasure. Each of the rooms had 8 columns of 10 boxes, so there were 80 boxes in every strong room, 400 boxes in all. Each box had a small metal tray in it, which could be pulled out, and every one of them, Molly and Rocky soon discovered, was different. There were trays with large single rubies, carefully laid out on velvet. There were others with tiny fingernail-sized packets stuffed into them like sardines. There were trays full of pearl necklaces, and others covered in diamond rings. Some held leather, silk, or suede pouches. Each pouch was filled with gems. There were trays of expensive antique jewellery and specially cut jewels. Molly and Rocky emptied each tray, putting their contents into a separate brown envelope, doing 1 column of boxes at a time. 10 full brown envelopes filled every football-sized sack. Finally, the last of the sacks was passed onto the human conveyor belt and transported to the garage. There they were loaded on by the gorilla onto the truck. It was exhausting work. Millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of jewels left the vaults. But eventually, every last crystal in the bank had been lifted and packed, and a pile of plump bags sat expectantly in the back of the truck. Molly and Rocky assembled the sweaty, hypnotised subjects and duly blanked all their minds. All of you will wake up when you hear the clock outside strike 2:30, Molly said. You will all tell the police that an armed gang of robbers with stockings on their heads robbed the bank, and well, each of you will have your own story to tell, like how frightened you were, what they said to you, that sort of thing. And until 2:30, you can all sit on the floor and sing songs. The last thing is this. You will have no memory at all of me and my friend. The people in the lobby all obediently sat down and began to sing songs. Molly thought how sweet they looked, like kindergarten children sitting on the floor. Then she and Rocky jumped into the front of the security lorry with the hypnotised driver. The garage door opened and the lorry left. The door shut behind it. It was a nerve-wracking drive from Shoring's Bank to West 52nd Street, because the gorilla was not in complete control of the vehicle. By the end of it, they were all pretty shaky, but soon, near the docks, they had located the rundown building that was Notman's warehouse. Molly tried to read its graffitied exterior, while Rocky hopped out to open its shabby doors. Then the transplanting began. The jute bags had to be repacked into Notman's brown lorry. When the job was done, the hairy guard sat down red in the face from all the effort, and Molly gave him a drink. Thank you very much, said Rocky, feeling sorry for him. Now you must drive the empty lorry back to the bank, but you won't wake up or get there until 3 o'clock. You won't remember this address. You will tell everyone who asks you that you are made to unload the stuff into all sorts of different cars, like Mustangs, Cadillacs, station wagons, that sort of thing. And then you'll say afterwards that you were tied up and blindfolded, and that when you finally broke loose, you found yourself on 99th Street, and that you drove back to the bank from there. The gorilla grunted and then slurped his water, spilling half of it down his chest as he drank. Soon he was gone. At 20 to 2, Molly sat nervously on a chair, waiting for Knockman to arrive. And that is the end of chapter 27. Whew, that was a long one. I think that was one of the longest. I hope they got away with that. Well, let's see, shall we? So listen, I just want to say I really admire you all working at home, because I know that loads of you are having to do schoolwork at home, and I know how difficult it is working at home, because writers have to have a lot of self-discipline. We have to stop ourselves from, going to the fridge and making another cup of tea, or watching TV when in fact we should be working. And I know how difficult it is to work at home and not be distracted. So good luck with that, and have a good week wherever you are. Try to keep positive. Look on the bright side. There's always something good to think about. So just try and do that. And until we next meet, happy hypnotizing. Bye.